Welcome to the episode 201. Big leagues now, 200 plus. As Stella was saying, this doesn't count the prior ones, which is true.
What's that?
Well, there was prior podcasts. We started the Strongfit Podcast, but I've done a shit ton of podcasts before that. At least 50 or 60.
The Barbell Shrug podcast, of
No,
course.
that's the famous one, the two. There was two. You never saw them, did you?
I did not.
My own wife. There you go.
I'll look into that.
There's two of them, episode 190 and 191.
Of?
The Barbell Shrug
Oh,
Podcast.
I watched that.
Did you watch both of them?
Yes, I did.
You didn't know there was two?
No, but I didn't know there was one before the Barbell.
Yeah, there was a podcast. But there's two episodes of the Barbell. Did you see both episodes of the Barbell Shrug Podcast?
Yes, I did. Because you look like a homeless person.
The truth comes out. All right, so
You had a big ass beard.
bring on the comments. Do I look like a homeless person in the Barbell Shrug Podcast?
I was fucking with you. But you were.
I think she means it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure she means it. Anyway.
Big ass beard.
No, before that, I had 10 episodes of the Whatcast podcast.
That I didn't watch. That one I meant.
That's like old school LA, the first ones.
I'll watch that today.
Yeah, that was you can only listen. There's no video.
Where is it to find?
The Whatcast podcast.
On YouTube?
No, there's no video. YouTube carries video. If you want audio, you go toward podcasts like iTunes.
Okay.
It might be, they were on iTunes, it might be on Spotify if you look, but you cannot find it on YouTube because YouTube does videos.
Maybe you just, I don't know, have a black thing. Like a black thing with just audio. Let's restart.
That's what they have
Welcome to
podcasts
a
for.
podcast.
Oh, we're not restarting that one.
Yeah,
This is, I'm keeping this, trust
All
me.
right.
So behind the scenes,
No,
Strongfit
just
podcast.
stop.
Yes.
We're starting again.
No, I'm not. We are definitely. Okay, we are totally starting again. Anyway, episodes.
Welcome to episode 201.
Exactly.
What are we going to talk about today, Julian?
Programming the 50s, because we forgot to do that one. We jumped to the 5s because we didn't pay attention and did not do the 50s. So if you hear dogs losing their fucking minds in the back end, I'm sorry. It most likely will happen. Anyway, programming the 50s. So that's a very good moment to do this podcast because I released my I released the latest rounds of templates. So I had template downs in different ways. There was a fit template, the fit 2.0. There was the Q-1, the conditioning. And so what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to group everything together. And
we're all becoming friends.
Right, exactly. And the masculine versus feminine energy, the men versus women in a sense of double XY chromosome coming together is giving me finally a picture between the Q-1 and then all that where I feel I can actually systemize the principles of Strongfit and put them into a programming system. And that's what I want to bring forward now is actually having a programming system. So, and then that's why you see the hundreds, the 50s and the 5s coming in. So what I started this week is the first week of the 12-week block of the masculine template, which will be a mostly strength cycle for the next 12 weeks. So by the time this comes out, we are in week 1. If you want to join, bring it on. 12 weeks, strength cycle. In order to explain the 50s, I will explain that template from my side, and then we'll talk about what the 50s mean for you. Because I think that way we can we cover CrossFit and strength. So,
I like it.
So we're talking about the 50s, the 100 and the 5. So imagine a pyramid like this, right? So you take a pyramid.
If you make those and I make this, and that's
Yeah. No, so I go like this and then yeah, right. So, and then we are one person. So imagine a pyramid that you put on the side with the top on the left, right? So that left part is going to represent the 50s, and the 50s are going to grow into hundreds and 5s. Are going to divide top 100, bottom 5. So it's an idea, right? That you'll start from the same center and we'll go into extremes, the extremes being the hundreds and the 5s. And you're going to see that idea of the center toward the extremes is something we're going to see continuously between masculine and feminine, men and women. So my idea is to start I'm going to talk about my side, the first week of the 12-week cycle within the 50s. So 50s are what? So I call it the 50s because it's in the training session, it was like the 5 sets of 10. Mm-hmm. You know, it's if you look at the performance box, it's muscle quantity, muscle quality, really. Mm-hmm. It's heavy bodybuilding. right? If we look at it like this, it just allows you. It's really the maximum hypertrophy. So it depends a little bit on how you look at it. This is what they used to call power building in the 70s, right? 5 sets of 10, where you can develop strength really well that way, and at the same time put on muscle. You see that works really well for squatting. You see that for deadlifting. There was a lot of actually powerlifting programs that was based on sets of 10s. Mostly sets of 5s, but some were on sets of 10s. Usually most powerlifting programs starts around 10.
Yep.
So, but it's also what I call the heavy bodybuilding. So for me, that's what the 50s would be. For you, it would be your Metcons.
Yeah.
You know, like a friend,
Yeah.
25, 21, 59, that's 45 reps.
Yeah.
It would be your Helen. It would be anything that is more on the short and intense phase. That would be what I call the 50s. So the 100 to the 50 to the 5, you can see, imagine an arch that is toward exploration to exploitation. The 50s exactly is in the middle, where you're gonna have to go after business, but at the same time you have to pay attention to where you are. So lighter weight, the 50s I think are the center, right? Are where your center is, and probably where you make the most progress. I think that's where the progress is built.
Right.
It's in the 50s. So you could put like an inverted pyramid with the bottom as the base in the 50s and going in the 100 and the 5s as a higher thing. So the 50s for me right now means what? Means there's still going to be 2 sides, because I divided my template into 2 sessions. Why? Because one session is going to be my heavy assistance work, my power building, my heavy bodybuilding, where I'm going to do about 3-4 sets of 10 reps, honestly, around that. So heavy bodybuilding, and I'm going to target and the same thing, the same movement I'm going to use for my powerlifting. But on the other side is my powerlifting and strongman are going to be on the lighter side. So they're going to be at 10 reps as well.
Yeah.
So that means 10 reps on the squat, 10 reps on the deadlift, 10 reps on the bench, right? And what I'm going to do is that every week I'm going to add 1 rep to my assistance work. So first week is 10 reps, then 11 reps, and 12 reps as we go. And powerlifting is going to go the other way. It's going to go 10, 9, 8, 7, and then we're going to go like this over 10 weeks on the way down. So 12-week blocks, because at the end, with the PR you're supposed to get, you're going to get around 12 weeks. So that first phase, the first 3-4 weeks, will be a phase of heavy bodybuilding when I get 10 to 13, 14 reps. I hope you don't hear the dogs too much in the back, because it's crazy. This is what we have to deal with every day. It's crazy. I'll try to block as much as I can on the podcast.
It's almost hard to concentrate.
Yeah, it's hard to concentrate because they're just barking like this all the time, but we can never tell whether it's going to happen or not. Anyway, welcome to our life with the next house, I swear, we'll make sure there's no dogs around. Anyway.
We're just going to have no one around.
Yeah.
I want to have no one around.
Then we'll be able to do podcast maybe correctly. Anyway, so every week I'm going to add 1 rep to the assistance work and subtract 1 rep to the powerlifting. So that means that first week is going to be lots of power building and powerlifting in the 10 rep range. Since the first block, those 4 weeks will be heavy hypertrophy, heavy bodybuilding, and it taxes me a lot. I'm already tired in week 2. I can only do probably 3-4 weeks. So what I'm going to do for the strongman that I'll keep on Saturday will be, I'm going to take the same weight for 4 weeks, and I'm just going to try to go faster at it for greater distances. So what do I mean? You saw my video, hopefully, on the farmer's walk up and down the hill outside, and then I'm going to try to cover more distance or do an extra set every week. So I'm going to try to build a volume of distance and speed. I'm going to try to cover more distance but faster, working on my grip, on that strength endurance. Same thing for the overhead carries, same thing for the sandbag carries. I'm going to work on that strength endurance because we are in the 10 reps. If you look at percentages, it's probably around 65% first week. So 65% allows me to do between 10 and 65-70% allows me to do like 10-15 reps, depending, but that's more or less where I start. And then every week we're going to add some percentage and go down, right? So first 4 weeks for me of the 50s is going to be heavy bodybuilding. So how do I place that? If you look at the template, I do it in the morning because the bodybuilding that I do is based on the lift that I did the night before. So how come I don't do my bodybuilding right after my heavy main powerlifting lifts?
Yeah, and what if you don't have time to train twice a week?
Right, so what I would do is I would do it that way. I would do, for example, if I do squatting, right? I'll do 2 sets of back squat, 10 reps, and then after that I'll do I'm trying the semi-sumo stance right now, and I do 2 sets of 10 on that. Then I would move into leg press, leg curls and stuff like that, bodybuilding style, maybe some hack squat, bodybuilding style. I like the one leg press a lot, maybe some more leg press on top of that, some leg extension, some leg curls, movement like that, and then do into one session. If I do that, I won't last 4 weeks. I get overly stimulated with that. I get like this, I can't sleep, and it murders me. I'm hungry all day, I have massive cravings, I'm tired, I can't work correctly. It's way too much stimulus for me. And on top of it, I don't get to feel where the issues are as I go, so it's not a useful block. So I much rather...
You can't keep your sharpness that you like.
I don't. So there's 2 ways to do this. So the way I'm going to explain the way I like to do it and the way maybe you could do it. So what I like to do is I squat at night, and then the next morning, I'm going to feel where the squat hit me. Is it my hips? Is it more my hammies? What did I like about the squat when I did it? Like, did I feel I was engaging properly? Any mobility issue, any hammies or whatever? And I wake up the next morning and I'll feel like, okay, this was an issue, and then, my hips are killing me or whatever. Then I will head for the gym in order to correct what did not happen the way I would have liked to see happening, or maybe like my hips are not happy. Then I'll train on that specifically. If I'm really, really, really beat up, but for a set of 10 I shouldn't be, I would go maybe like higher than 10 reps. But normally for a set of 10, the next morning I should have the pump, like the tightness of main lifts, but nothing crazy. But that allows me to feel the weaknesses that I should work. And that's what I'll work, assistance work, the next morning at the Global Gym.
Okay.
If you could not do that, then you can do the assistance work after that for the other lift. So instead of doing squat into leg press and everything, which would be a solution, you could do squat semi-sumo and do the assistance work that you would do for the bench that is coming the next day or stuff like that. I mean, so there are different ways to do it so that you can do one session and not two. I cannot do assistance work after my main lifts. It's too much for me.
Yeah. So you take like a 45-minute per session, like the morning session is around 45 minutes, the evening session. So you're still like around the 1.5 hours you would usually train at, right?
Right, except the 45-minute session is less taxing because we've seen that many times. After 45 minutes, testosterone levels start to drop.
It's very interesting, right?
Yeah, so 2 sessions of 45 minutes, you can actually do a lot more than in one of 130. Not everybody has that chance. The problem that I have with doing the 2 main lifts and then assistance work is that I might be sore or my hips might be achy from the assistance work, but not from the main lifts, and I won't know which one did which.
Yeah, you also have to change the mindset because the assistance work is very like, how do I feel, where is what, where do I need to work on?
It's not as like, it's less exploitation than the main lifts.
Exactly, so it's basically exploitation.
Yeah, and I won't know which one did what.
Right.
So I don't like it. So I much rather do my assistance work the next morning. So that's been working really, really well for me. And so and then the next day, so I do the leg press, all that stuff, and then that night I'll bench because then I blasted my lower body, my upper body is still fine, so then I'll bench, and then the next morning off the bench, I'll do my teres major, my lat pull downs, my shoulder work, my tricep work, all that stuff, because then I know, by the way, if even with sets of 10, is my right shoulder not happy? Are my teres major working enough? I can work on my pec minor with some of the exercise. I'll do the bicep opener, I'll get my biceps going. All the stuff that I felt was not where it needs to be during the bench, which is still that right bicep. So that's how I'm going to do it. And so the first 4 weeks is going to be a heavy block, really of heavy assistance work. That's where my focus is. It's like, all right, so I do my sets of 10. I see where the movement pattern is at the beginning of the block. Am I happy with it? Am I not? What do I need to prepare for what's coming? Right. And so it's honestly hammies as usual. Biceps are still a problem. My lats are growing just fine. My pecs, my shoulder can use some work. And then I'm like, all right, I do that. That's going to be the first 4 weeks. Then we're going to get after 4 weeks because that's about as far as I can take it. It's heavy hypertrophy. I gain muscle easily, but it's very taxing. And I don't like to do heavy loading for very long. So 3-4 weeks in, I'm going to get to 14-15 reps. I'm going to go more into what you call the high 50s, and we're starting to go into the low hundreds toward assistance work, which means I'm getting a pump now. Muscle are working, but I don't need to go heavy. It's not like, there's less exploitation, more exploration toward that. And then my main lifts are going to start to go around the 6 rep range. 6 rep range is like, all right, shit is starting to get real, starting to get heavy. You start to, it starts to mean business. That is a perfect time for me to go ape shit on strongman. So what I'm going to do at that moment, because I'm not going to be, my back, my upper back, all that stuff is not going to be that taxed for my main lifts, I'm going to go heavy on the strongman that I prepare by going strength endurance for 4 weeks.
Right.
So now I'm going to go heavy farmers, now I'm going to go heavy yoke carry, heavy overhead yoke carry, all that stuff, I'm going to go much heavier. I'm going to pursue that for 4 weeks. By the end of the 4 weeks of that, I'm getting around like the 3-4 rep range, 3 rep range on powerlifting. So now it's getting heavy.
Yeah.
So that means that I'm going to back off on the strongman on that one, because normally I made my PR and everything. So I might, even if I'm really beat up, I might take out the strongman, or most of the time I'll just go light, more volume, but more as a let's work on technique type of thing. Just the stuff I enjoy doing, rope pulls, overhead yoke carry. I'll take out the yoke carry most likely. More 100 mindset. Yeah. And then I'm going to go heavy into my main lifts.
Yeah.
So then at that moment, I'm going to go triples, doubles, singles for the last 4 weeks, right? And then hopefully a PR at the end of that on my main lift. So now I might switch the squat to the post squat because it allows me to go actually even harder. The choice of exercises will depend on a bunch of stuff, but basically I'm going into the low 5s now. I'm going the 3s, the 2s, the 1. I'm going very heavy, and then on the bodybuilding style, I'm going into the high 100s, where the only goal of the bodybuilding is to recover from the low reps that I'm doing onto my main lifts. That's how the 12-week blocks will be programmed. So the 50s is what's going to build that up.
It's the engine, as we
it totally is. So for me, the 50s are going to be the heavy. So we have the center 50s, which is the heavy bodybuilding, and then the lighter powerlifting, beginning of the cycle, going into a little bit lighter body, like that 6 rep range.
Right.
Up to there, which is really, I think, where you're going to build what is necessary for the PRs that are coming. I think that's really where progress lives. Right. Not necessarily where it is being tested and where it shows, but that's where it's being built. That's where I think the most important part is that. Yeah. That's the 50s. So that's for me.
That's for the masculine side. So how do you approach that programming for the feminine
Right. For the feminine side, I think the 50s is going to be your rounds of 400. Like that 2 minute, like 90 seconds, 60-second break, five rounds of 400 meters. This is murder. Like you still have to run well, so the exploration, but by the 4th, 5th set, it's exploitation because it's going to be hard. It's going to suck up wind. By the way, if you can do 5 sets of 400 meters with 90-second rest and you're not destroyed, you're fucking slow. There's no way. Just I had a friend who was a 400 meter at UCLA, so almost world class.
Yeah, if it doesn't bother you, run harder. It's a very, very good solution.
Okay, look,
it doesn't matter if you're a great runner or a terrible runner.
Yeah, go faster.
You can kill yourself on that workout.
No, but so you understand, the guy was about to become world class. He had a full scholarship as a 400 meter runner at UCLA, so top college when it comes to that. Their conditioning was 5 sets of 400 meter at 60-second rest. And guys puked every single time. So that tells you what you need to know. Yeah, exactly. So like if you're cruising through it, trust me, you're not running fast enough. So those would be your 50s. It would be your Metcons. You're like, for most people, like a friend. Like if you're a top person, a friend is a 5. But for most people, that 21:59 will require some breaks, but you're pushing the pace very, very, very hard on everything. Helen is a good one. 3 rounds, 400 meter, 21 kettlebell swings, 12 pull-ups. That's one where you just push. So it's your Metcons around the 10-minute mark.
Right.
Not that friend is a 10-minute mark, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
It's that center of everything. That's what the 50s are. You're not too invested emotionally, but it still has to mean business. You're still toward the exploitation, but some exploitation is required because the form has to stay correct. That's exactly that center of things where I think most progress lives. Right, so that's the nature. So how do I program it? So I explain how I intend to program it. For me, it's the heavy assistance work into lighter powerlifting and then you add one rep to one, subtract to the other one. For you, it would be men versus women depends on whether you're the type of mesocycle that is going to be decided. But if it's a longer mesocycle, I would not necessarily look at it from like the long runs. The long run is more going to be in the 100. The 50s is going to be like your 400 meters, your metcons, your a higher rep maybe on your Olympic weightlifting, because we're not in the single squat yet. So we're trying to build the structure for the Olympic weightlifting that's coming. So that's when you're going to see those imams of 3 front squat and 2 jerks. The stuff that just gasses you out because it's not light enough that you can cruise through it. So I love those, like 2 front squats and a jerk, 3 front squats and 2 jerks.
To me, that's my favorite, because it's like you have to focus because it's difficult, but at the same time, it's not like sucking the soul and life out of you at the same time.
That's
so for
the 50s.
me, it's the 50s is where I'm the least in freeze. Like if I do too much hundreds, I get too numb. If I do too much fives, I go too up, then go numb.
Right.
And the 50s is where I am super happy. Don't get me wrong, if I do too much of them, it's not good for me either. So it's the balance between everything. But I train mostly in the 50s. And like the hundreds is for me like don't break, and where I stabilize, and the fives is where I go towards that that intent, that murderous intent.
Right, but that's why we see also the feminine masculine. She's more in the center. Right.
For me, it's that nice center phase, something where I can always return to. It's what the 50s feel like to me. There's always a center.
Home.
It's nice. It's comfortable. It's not that it's comfortable because it's definitely
but it's home.
not.
Yeah.
But it's where I know I can do a 50 workout and leave happy. You know what I mean?
Right. Whereas for me, it's a war.
Yeah.
Like right now, I'm training twice a day. It's hard. Because like the heavy bodybuilding blasts me, I get home, I have to recover from it, and then I'm gonna go into, I'm gonna go do like the deadlifts like today and stuff like that. It's just hard. My stiff leg and everything is gonna be. It's a war for me. The 50s. I can't wait to get into the extreme, which is the high hundreds and the low fives.
Yeah.
Then I'm super happy. Like right now for me is a war. You need both, right? But it's a completely different idea, and I think we see that very much in the masculine versus feminine. The 50s is home to the people in the center. It is much harder to deal with if you are on the extremes, which is me all the way.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, I believe that's where progress is built, is in the 50s. I don't like it because it's just after a while it crashes me. I can't do that too often. That's why it's going to be a 3 to 4 weeks block, and then I'm going to start edging toward the extremes, because I just can't take it for too long.
For me, it's like the strength stuff. Like I can't go too often in the fives, and I can't go too long in the fives.
Yeah.
Like for me, I constantly, like right now, I'm doing definitely more lifting as well. I need to constantly balance myself out with 50s and 100s to keep myself centered. I like to be constantly in that center, but that's also, we're going to do a bit more podcast on that.
But it's the 80-20 rule. So if you look at the Pareto distribution, you have the 80-20 rule, right? You have 10%, 80, 10%, and the center. She lives in the center, and she needs a little bit of hundreds and the fives to balance.
Yeah.
I live in the extremes, and I need the 50s to balance me out, but the other way, I'll spend more time on the extremes, less time in the center. She will be the opposite, but that's the different masculine versus feminine, which we're going to do a podcast on. But so how would I program that for you? I will program essentially the imams of strength, for example. We're going to do it a little bit differently. If you need to approach the cleans, the ones you like is like a clean 2 front squats and a jerk. It's like you love those, right?
Because I need to, like I'm working my Olympic weightlifting, so I need to do that. But there's stuff that I'm good at, like the front squats I'm good at. So there's a win and a loss, like a jerk I suck at. So those types of things are good for me always.
No, but from a programming perspective, for example, we'll make her do, right now she did 3 reps for 12 minutes at 105?
Yeah.
105 kilos. So she was supposed to do 2 reps, and I offered her the idea to do 3 reps. She was like, no, I'm not going to do it because I don't want to mess with it. I was like, you're right, that's a very good point. And so what did she do the day after? She went and she did 3 reps with 105 kilos on the imam. Because we're married, that's why. Exactly. So that's when I'm going to see the 50s. I'm going to see that. I'm going to see the 3 reps, the 4 reps every 90 seconds. Like maybe a little bit of a not a higher percentage, but we can push a little bit more on the rep range, which might force us to change the time limit a little bit. But I'm going to go more toward the 3-4 reps or things like that. Like she did 3 reps with 105 kilos, but there is no doubt she can do the EMOM of 2 reps on the minute with 110 now. So because she's progressing so fast. So I'm going to see the 50s are the 3-4 rep range on the EMOMs, whereas the 5s will be the 2s, right? Yeah. So we made her do the 2s for a while. It's time to go a little bit higher toward the 3s and the 4s. So because she also had to learn Olympic weightlifting, we'll put some, the Olympic weightlifting complex of a power clean and then 2 front squats and a jerk or stuff like that. But that's more because we're going to keep her under tension for longer periods of time, which is that center that the 50s represents really.
That's where I learned. For me, like we can go over how I need to do the perfect snatch, but at some point I just need to do a lot of snatches and fill.
You need the volume.
I need the volume.
You need the volume.
I need to know where I'm at supposed to be. I need to just do
Let's talk about the volume stuff. Right. So let's talk about the volume because I think that's very important. Maybe it's a masculine, feminine, but for example, for me, the volume is monstrous right now because I'm doing like 3-4 sets of 10 reps heavy with the bodybuilding, and then I'm doing 2-3 sets of 10 with the powerlifting. So the amount of reps that I'm putting on my body is ridiculous, which is probably why I'm so tired. When I go into the high 100, it's not taxing at all. And then I go into the low 5, so I don't really do that much reps. But you need the volume.
Yeah.
Right. And on the feminine side, that is very important. We have a lot of podcasts coming on men, women, masculine, feminine, difference between the two. But I think what we have seen with women, or at least the feminine side the most, is the need for volume, which is what the 50s represent. Obviously, the very high volume stuff is the hundreds. So if we're talking about running kilometers, 2Ks or stuff like that to build up, we're going to go toward the hundreds. The 50s is where you run hard. So it's your 400 meter, it's your 800 meter, where you just apply the stuff. And I think there's a need for that. So it's the same thing for the snatch. Is yes, you can go into technique work and then just do a lot of stuff that's 100 and is necessary. And then you can go into the singles because you have to test, which is necessary. But most of the work, at least for the feminine side, will come from that high volume.
I need to do it, man.
You need to snatch a lot.
And also because if I do just singles and I have to all look perfect, it's going to be in my head. Yeah. And I just need to do it. Like, honestly...
Right, it's volume, right?
It's like what I did with the pull-ups. Like, you explained to me 10,000 times how to do a pull-up. I learned to do pull-ups because I did a shit ton of workouts with pull-ups, and at some point I was like, fuck, I suck at pull-ups. It slows me down every single time. I just gotta do a shit ton of pull-ups. And then I learned how to do pull-ups. And I'm still not that great at it, but I need the volume.
Yeah.
I need the
There's
volume.
No question.
I need to do it. I need to...
And you see that a lot. And anyway, women are great at it, but also on the feminine side, there's just a need for volume. So women on the feminine side, like Janina Aid, has to rely heavily on volume. But it's not just volume like in the hundreds where it's easy. It's volume of hard work. So that's why I think the 400 meter and the 800 meter run are the best example of that, because an 800 meter is the most horrible thing you can do. Because you have to go super fast and it's very long. So it's horrible. It's just a few minutes of absolute hell.
Pain.
Yeah.
You can achieve a type of pain with running that is not describable.
Which is why I don't do it.
But as a runner,
yeah, exactly.
The stuff I felt.
For lifting, it'll be that. It'll be like those EMOMs of 4 minutes. Or 4 reps on the minute. Yeah. It's gonna be like, this is where like CJ at Invictus was famous. He made women very strong, and he had those EMOMs that were 30 minutes long, with like 2-3 reps on the minute. And I always looked at it going like, this is insane. How can anybody do that? But I've seen so many women and so many people on the feminine side get very strong out of EMOMs that are 30 minutes long, of power cleans and 2 power cleans and a front squat or stuff like that for 30 minutes, which I was like, there's no way this works. And guess what? I was 100% wrong when I saw it at first, because I went at it from masculine mindset, because it wouldn't work out for me. But this isn't about me. This is about in that case, Janina, who's a woman on the feminine side. So there's a completely different approach for that. So I have my 50s, she has her 50s. And I don't spend that much time in the 50s, but she does.
For me, like the back squat, for example,
is a perfect example.
Perfect example. We keep mentioning it, so people are probably sick and tired of it. But it's a perfect example because we went through the whole powerlifting cycle, and I learned how to squat great, and I needed the basics, right? I needed to know how to squat. But then the strength.
No, you just needed to break parallel.
That too.
That's all.
I needed the confidence that I needed for the squat, the volume, the knowing the squat, I got from the imams. Yeah. Like I feel really confident doing a back squat now, which was at first
shit ton of volume, but tired. So it's not. That's the thing. It's not just volume. It's volume tired.
It's
that's what seems to define. Well. That's what seems to define the 50s is volume tired. Because like right now I'm tired from the volume, but I have to fight through it, which I don't like, but it's going to give me results. This is the part that is so useful for Janina, and then is those imam when she's tired and she keeps pushing. She builds her confidence to that. I don't. But the fact is, I think that's where a lot of the progress is exactly into that phase.
Right.
Quality work, tired at a big volume. That shit is where the results come from.
Right.
Big volume of quality work, tired.
Yeah.
It creates. That's the stimulus you're looking for, and so
that's the best way to describe the 50s.
Yeah, I think so. Is that
from my side at least, it's the
or
best.
Or from mine too. That's exactly how I feel right now. Yeah. So that's how you program the 50s. You want quality work, high volume, keep people tired, either through the type of stuff that I do on my side or there, and the cycling from 100 to 50s to 5s. We're going to do it differently, men versus women as well. Double X versus XY chromosome, because women, people who menstruate, fuck all of you with this. People who menstruate, women, whatever. Can we just say, no, but it's just a ridiculous conversation.
I know.
People who menstruate, women have a natural cycle, men don't. And I think that has very much, that has influenced the way we program, but I think this is, the men's programming in that sense is wrong for women because they already have a natural cycle, and the mesocycle that you see in strength and conditioning does not agree with that because it's not built for that. So that's going to be the next podcast.
Like we're not controversial enough. Now we're going to touch women's cycle
because
and
we
women's
have to.
programming.
Yeah,
and we have to.
But there's a difference between masculine, feminine, and men versus women. But there has to be. So that's why I'm going to say double X versus XY chromosome, because hopefully we'll avoid the algorithm of YouTube that will otherwise again shadow ban us.
Yeah, but I gotta say, we're gonna talk about it in the other podcast, but I'm so happy we're gonna program like this because
it works better.
First of all, it's super interesting. Second of all, since I started like training and like being an adult, it's so important. You know what I mean? Well, know where, like as a kid, it doesn't matter, you're just playing around, but like growing into actual training.
No, because you're handling real weights now.
And also training on the cycle, your own cycle, it's so interesting.
Anybody who can power clean 90 kilos, like you start, now the weights are real, like you have to be able to do it correctly. So now we need to start doing things. If she wants to keep making the progress she's making, now the programming really matters.
But even within sprint, like I was always so fascinated on the subject because I always was programmed by men. I always had so many questions about it, and now we finally get to explore and talk with other women about it and Julian's knowledge in it. So it's so interesting to me to learn how to do this all correctly.
So that's where we're going to go, but that's the next podcast. In the meantime, we wanted to explain how to program the 50s. Right. So on the masculine side, it'll be heavy assistance work and higher main lifts. On the feminine side, it will be your 400 meters, your 800 meters, your 10-minute Metcon, and your higher rep imams. Yeah. Because what we want is high quality work, tired at a certain volume.
Yeah.
And that is the center. This is where, again, progress lives, is being created. This is the center, like your Pareto distribution, right? And then from there, we're going to go toward the extreme as is needed based on different ideas.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's how we program the 50s. So again, first week of my template is up. And then if you want to follow my 12-week strength cycle, see if it works for you, bring it on. Men on the masculine side is more going to be that. The conditioning template is far more stable in its approach because we're not going to cycle based on that. We're going to cycle based on a natural 4-week cycle. Anyway, that will come in the next podcast. Bye, everybody.